And just relax the tension in your body slowly as your spine keeps its good posture and your body becomes unattached, just like a gyroscope. Remaining in itself neutral, the swiveling mind sends us into dualistic states derived out of our attachment to what we like and our aversion to what we don't. When in this weakened state, not able to rest within its foundation, namely neutrality, the mind is easily sent into a tailspin by the slightest headwind. If a little breeze hits the weakened mind in a spot which is sensitive to the kinetic energy, it begins to spin and spin and spin itself into various impermanent and shifting negative and positive mental and emotional states. As previously noted, these mental and emotional states then serve to reinforce our habits, and an onslaught of sticky karmic attachment is the result. Clogged up by these impressions which are scratched onto the mind, like writing on a chalkboard by the oscillations of our thoughts, all of our mental processes are tinged with the poisons of ignorance. Our entire reality is projected out from the state of ignorance and dis-ease in our minds, whether it be mental, emotional, or physical state, be a mental, emotional, or physical state. Our mental habits become tinged by aversion and attachment, causing some to assert their egoic pride, others to back off and become antisocial. Thought becomes filtered through the cracked lens of polarity mind, and we find ourselves naturally gravitating towards people to whom we are quote-unquote like-minded, around whom our polarized mental condition is able to interact more smoothly, as energy tends to follow naturally the line of least resistance. If this polarized cracked lens were to implant itself into a situation which is foreign to it, physically, emotionally, or mentally, the mind will swing itself into the polarity of aversion, and while doing so would be also indicating the counterswing of the pole of attachment, and create a corresponding effect in the fields of emotion and action. Emotion reinforces our ignorant judgment, and action is carried out to remove us from the situation, adjust it in a way which we deem appropriate, or react negatively from our discomfort. This also in turn reinforces our mental and emotional conditions. In this way, our self and our life becomes extremely limited, narrowly confined in small boundaries which only repeat previous patterns. Attachment to the pleasurable turns into attachment for the familiar, and aversion to the displeasurable becomes aversion to the unfamiliar. At this point, the phantoms that we are chasing turn into phantoms which chase us. Illusions which we absorb ourselves into begin to absorb themselves into us. Identity is lost, and following the line of least resistance is seen to be the same thing as following the brainwashing of pop culture. Ego holds a carrot dangling over our heads, but the carrot is never really reached. Even if someone does manage to get everything one wants, one is never satisfied, and there is the persistent aversion of losing grip of what we are attached to. What we think of as pleasure contains within it the opposite always. Being enticed on to party and go to clubs or bars, to use an example appropriate to our generation, may seem like only a pleasurable experience and that nothing bad can come out of it. However, we find that we will crave for more and more outlandish parties and alcohol and drug taking in order to satisfy the craving for a pleasure which can never be kept for long. After a night of pleasure partying, one appropriately experiences a morning of displeasure, being hungover and sick. Additionally, the next party will need to be even more exciting, otherwise we will get bored with it and are unable to extract the pleasure to which we are so neurotically and unhealthily attached. We try to repeat the process over and over again, but every time our experience of it is more dulled and more dulled, or more and more dulled, unless we crank up the intensity each time. If that we do crank up the intensity each time, we'll find that our hangovers are more intense also, and we begin to run the risk of getting into some dangerous karmic territory and experiencing something violent such as a car crash or a bad injury during a drunken brawl. These type of violent events which happen are 100% related to previous karmic cycles, because nowhere in this universe is there an action without a reaction. So we will find our normal non-partying life also adversely affected, as slowly we become an old washed-up burnout who has wasted their lives in pointless drunken revelry. Quote-unquote, colors blind the eye, sounds deafen the ear, flavors numb the taste, thoughts weaken the mind, desires wither the heart. The master observes the world, but trusts his inner vision. He allows things to come and go. His heart is open as the sky. Tao Te Ching. Worse than pointless, chasing after such pleasure attachments causes a significant worsening of our position karmically, which can either serve as a catalyst for transmutation into the good, or an anchor which sinks us even further into the bad. Usually, even the most dense of people begin to learn from the constant swing back and forth that the process of chasing after these phantoms is destructive. They start to develop some detachment with regard to their former attachments and lessening of aversiveness to their former aversions. This is the resolution of poles into their neutral core, into a depth corresponding to the depth of the poles themselves. The gyroscope of our being is constantly being recalibrated, depending on hard-heartedness, in such a way that we are thrown further into our delusions through ignorance, or freed from delusions into the perfect harmony of neutrality through wisdom. The being thrown into ignorance is divided into aversion and attachment, which in turn feeds back into the clear light of our mind and produce further reactions and dualistic divisions, and based on further aversions and attachment, which in turn feeds back into our clear light of our mind and produces further reactions and dualistic divisions based on further aversion and attachment. The gyroscope spins and spins to and fro upon its axis, becoming further subdivided and further complicated, in such a way that it carries the potential for delusion or insight. Depending on the frequency and modality of the way in which we engage the reality within and without, whether making many connections or few, and whether we are acting and thinking consciously or unconsciously, we will experience currents of ascension or descension, ascending within descending, descending within ascending, etc. Choosing to be closed-minded and lacking curiosity, our internal processes suffer from stagnation. Ignorance breeds all of the attachment and aversion that becomes the snares which bind our mind in Samsara. Without keeping an open mind and flowing within the current of curiosity and mental exploration, we tread on the static path of that which is material and dense. Without keeping an open mind and flowing within the current of curiosity and mental exploration, we tread on the static path of that which is material and dense. That which is born and dies is created and is destroyed. Hopes and fears is not, and is destroyed. Hopes and fears. That which is born and dies is created and is destroyed. Hopes and fears is not the unborn clear light of mind which resides in equipoise in the middle of and beyond all opposites. This clear light, which is your true being, the absolute reality, full of infinite potential of the resolution of all extremes, is that awareness which is the basis of the two poles. The awareness becomes lost in the knots created by the illusory tapestry displaying the story of the wrong view of self, woven with the needle and thread of attachment and aversion by the hand of ignorance. This static and seldom changing scene of ourself and life perpetuates its own story and drags the pure awareness along with it into its tangled fabric. Seldom does anything become manifest other than a continuation of what has come before. Even the novel things which people do are more often than not but things which they have seen others of like polarized mind do and are replicating unconsciously or consciously. Unconscious really is the key word to describe this condition. The part of the awareness which is underneath, bound up with attachment and aversion, part of the awareness which is underneath, bound up with attachment and aversion, becomes the strongest motivating factor within the mind, emotions, speech, and actions. The whole pattern of life is submerged into unconscious of the submerged into the unconscious of unconsciousness, no different than an apparition appearing in a dream. Yet awareness does not disappear; it is merely bound up within the dream. If there is complete and utter static mind, then we will have reached the state of animal consciousness, and we abide in our animal desires and not much else. Only a fluid and dynamic mind which is observant and curious to discover and learn will not victimize itself with self-imposed limitations. Then we will be able to use the mind and not be used by it, and attain that shining primordial tranquility which neutralizes all opposite extremes. For him who has conquered the mind, quote-unquote, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. By being covered with the static forms and unable to properly perceive higher interconnected dynamic truths, ignorance, attachment, and aversion ensue. But by being detached from the transient static forms, one can perceive the higher truths at play, and not being caught in any one side or the other, resolve any situation, and enjoy living consciously and riding a natural harmonic flow. Everything naturally resolves itself, and one sees the order and finitude balance inherent in all reality. By distancing oneself from the dualistic conceptual framework of seeing things, true and primordial wisdom naturally develops. Things are seen as they are, void of any ignorant distortion on our part, and need only maintain the balance within this neutrality to flow with all of the swings of the gyroscope and resolve them before they become uncontrolled and carry us away into creating further karma and samskaras, engraven images in the mind. The latent psychic and emotional energy that was frozen up being misused in keeping alive the phantasmagorical illusionary tapestry of ourself is freed and transforms into the bliss of our natural mental state. Detachment from that which is perceived clearly to be impermanent naturally arises, as thread by thread the tapestry of attachment to the unreal is unwoven. The unrealness begins to cease fogging the mind, and pristine wisdom of perceiving all interconnected truths united together within emptiness arises. Gradually, the strength of the swing of polarity is taken away from these uncontrollable mental oscillations, freeing us from the bondage of attachment to impermanent pleasure and pain based on the objects of our mind and senses. For if all objects of the mind and senses are perceived with wisdom as they are truly, not existing independently and permanently as objects with own being of their own, as the conditioned mind perceives, then the mind will cease to depend on and obsess over these mental objects and senses as if they were substantial things which lasted forever. Indeed, for who would there be to crave, and what would be craved? One cannot expect to extract pleasure from the same husband or wife forever. Someday they will depart their bodies. Same husband or wife forever. Someday they will depart their bodies, and all of that pleasure will turn into unbearable pain. This attachment will be brought to naught sooner or later, no matter how hard we kick and scream. Drugs, alcohol, food, or other addictions only hide and cover our malaise with a temporary pleasure that requires a higher dose of substance each time around. Chasing after the rush of these substances only causes one to become further entrenched in the swamp of karmic action and reaction, staining our pure mind and polarizing it into increasingly extreme oscillations, which in turn lead to more and more divisions of dualistic extremes. Violence and struggle to attain the addiction, shame and guilt of becoming pathetically disempowered. These effects of the dark polarity are clearly undesirable whether you have faith in transcendence or not. Work and social life provide a temporary distraction from our hollow, meaningless existence, but excess attachment to our indulgence in these things also leads to their own plethora of dualistic extremes and prevents them from being enjoyable. Likewise, any of the multifarious novelties that people occupy their lives with in order to escape from the uneasiness they feel with their existences. You can spend as much time as you like playing the polarity game of attachment and aversion, but in the end you will have realized that you have only really been going around and around and around in circles all your life. Afterwards, when that life is over, all of the pleasure and pain, attachment and aversion, love and hate, etc. is dissolved by death, the great equalizer. All of these impermanent things, which previously appeared to be the all in all of our self, reality, our total existence, are revealed to be the non-existent voidness that they truly are. Where then has gone all of those weighty, heavy burdens which we thought as being so objectively real? Where is our wife and husband, our job, our kids? Where is our country, our world? Where has it gone? If it is seen that all of these things which we previously thought of as being so objectively real and permanent are reduced to non-existence upon death, then it must be concluded that these things were always void-like from the beginning, existing like phantoms in the mind. Something which is truly objectively real and permanent cannot cease to exist, but we find that all things in the material world, including our very selves, are constantly ceasing to exist. Therefore, while in existence, the forms and feelings and thoughts were nothing more than the voidness of the pure mind. Voidness being a complete lack of objective self-existence in the way that we typically think of it. Just as clouds float in the sky but do not stain the sky, so forms, feelings, and thoughts float through the void of the mind but do not stain the mind itself. The mind projects the illusion of dualistic extremes and is caught up in the oscillations back and forth, identifying with them and forming concrete identities from them. But the whole time the forms and feelings and thoughts of our material life were no different than those experienced while in a dream, believing that the phantasms thus experienced form a part of an eternal, objectively existing self-nature. The pure mind exacts dogmatic rules and overbearing limitations upon its own infinite nature, and is lost in the tides of the world of continuous birth and death that it asserts itself into with this process. That same mind, when released from the entanglement of duality, swings itself from the oscillations of aversion and attachment, and resides in the pure equanimous bliss of the sameness of all phenomena. Quote unquote. Think of neither existence nor non-existence, neither progress nor regress. Think of neither front nor back, neither left nor right. Think of neither non-existence nor existence, neither far nor near. Think of neither pain nor itch, neither hunger nor thirst. Think of neither cold nor hot, neither pain nor pleasure. Think of neither birth nor old age, nor illness nor death. Think of neither body nor life nor longevity. Think of neither wealth nor poverty, nor nobility nor lowliness. Think of neither sense objects nor desires. Think of neither large nor small, neither long nor short, neither beauty nor ugly. Think of neither evil nor good, neither anger nor delight. Think of neither rising nor sitting, neither proceeding nor stopping. Think of neither the sutras nor the dharma. Think of neither right nor wrong, neither grasping nor abandoning. Think of neither perception nor consciousness. Think of neither cessation nor continuation. Think of neither emptiness nor true reality. Think of neither heavy nor light, neither hard nor easy. Think of neither deep nor shallow, neither broad nor narrow. Think of neither father nor mother, neither wife nor children. Think of neither friends nor acquaintances, neither love nor hatred. Think of neither gain nor loss, neither success nor failure. Think of neither clarity nor turbidity. Everything is recognized as not existing on its own, but existing through the one stream of mind which flows through all space, the same stream of mind which is realized as the neutral, clear light of your own awareness. The temporary manifestations of form, feeling, thought, which were previously imputed to be objective and permanently existing of their own being, recognized as voidness in the end and voidness at the beginning, are seen to be non-different from the empty clarity of our own minds. Quote-unquote, emptiness does not differ from form, form does not differ from emptiness. Whatever is emptiness, that is form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness. Recognizing all things as having the mark of non-being, the restful equipoise in which we dwell is able to relate to all things, people, and effects of this life as belonging to ourselves, belonging to non-being. The walls of separation and isolation which were imputed upon the infinite and clear nature of mind transform into sort of instantaneous and shifting guidelines for our thought and expression, rather than a strict, real, and permanent quote-unquote self-nature that we feel obliged to maintain or concretely identified with. Shifting and twisting and changing shape, the gyroscope-like wheel of our mind tears down old structures where they are not needed, and refines and sharpens the ones which are needed. In reality, there never was a concrete set-in-stone identity, but what appeared there was a pattern of mental oscillations, quote-unquote samskaras, which were repeated over and over again and embedded onto the memory. Mistaking this pattern which has arisen like a light over the empty space for something which is substantial and real, all sorts of suffering derived from attachment and aversion arose. The patterns flickering in the mind and memory, however, are nothing but a streaming movement of mind's energies, in the same way that a current of electricity powers the light of a light bulb, or like the little devices which are made with a LED light which moves back and forth repeatedly to give the illusion of a picture or a phrase. In that same way, our mind is flashing like lightning moment to moment, recreating and building upon what has come before it. When things are seen as they really are, our minds become free of attachment and aversion, all of the rough parts of our mind and emotions become smoothed over with the peace of equipoise neutrality. Wisdom, compassion, and all good qualities are allowed to be drawn out naturally, in equanimity as opposed to related to perceived dualistic absolutes. This forms into a healthy and flexible stream of quote-unquote identity, non-identity, which is an entirely different process, free and unlimited instead of trapped and bound, freed from grasping at the flickering instantaneous image. That which is impermanent is entirely transcended, and with it ignorance. With this sword of perfect wisdom, all roots of delusion and suffering are severed from the mind, leaving the crystal clarity of itself, shining like a well-sharpened blade made of the hardest diamond. This diamond-bladed mind of perfect wisdom and clarity cuts through all illusory, dreamlike perceptions. It is called diamond-like because it overcomes all weaker substances like a diamond penetrating glass with its hardness, and yet at the same time there is nothing which can overcome it. This is the neutral state of mind returned to its primordial, primeval, original, spotlessly pure condition, tempered with the wisdom of the opposites and their resolution in the harmonious golden center.